Everyone, today we're going to be digitally drawing today. Okay, so it has been a really long time since I've done like any sort of full-length process of any kind of digital illustration in Procreate on my channel, and I thought we'd do that today since I have been drawing a lot digitally lately and just been having a lot of fun. And I recently created my own Procreate brush that you can download if you become a patron, and have like a video process on how I made it, including the download. So please go check that out if you are interested in trying it. And of course, I'm going to show you what that looks like today. So this is my iPad. I have an iPad 9, so this is also first generation iPad pencil. Before we start, I need something as a reference for whatever I'm going to be drawing today. And I've been doing a couple still life drawings, drawing things in my real life around me as like a fun like drawing practice. And I thought I'd create a little still life thing to set up and draw that. So I'm gonna set that up and show you guys, and then we'll get started on to drawing. So I'm going to be setting up my still life right over here, so it's right near me so that I can see it while I'm drawing. And it's also perfect because it's right next to a light source, so that I have an idea of where light is coming in and where the shadows are. And that's like one of the coolest things about drawing still life, because there's lights and shadows nearby, so you can really like practice on drawing those things. For some fun shapes, I think I'll be using some books and some little cute frames. Okay, so here's my still life. This is a great small thing to start with. So let's get into Procreate. The first thing that I always do is change the background color so that I'm not staring at a white screen while I'm drawing. I want to pick a color, and I think that color would either be like a light blue or even like a light yellow. Again, this isn't like a set in stone color. I can absolutely change this after drawing. And I think I'm leaning more towards yellow. I've been drawing with a lot of yellow and green colors lately and just been having a ton of fun. And the color that I always start sketching with, for some reason, I don't know when this started, is this like dark like burgundy red. This is my custom brush that's again available for download. It is called Highlighter, and I changed a lot of the settings in here to like do some cool things. And this is even a custom shape because I based this off of some of my markers, because I really wanted a digital brush that can do what some of my favorite markers do. That is the brush, and a little demo of what it's like. I wanted it to have a bit of a color change, and that was like my first stroke, and my second stroke is a little bit different. There's a bit of a color change in here, and it has an opacity layering effect as well, which is what I really wanted for my brush. So again, starting with that burgundy color, and I like to sketch with like a size 4 or 5 for this brush. It is pretty small, that's size 4, but I think that'll be perfect. And looking at my still life over here, I think I'm gonna start with just getting a big line in the middle of the screen for the desk so that I know where to start. Okay, now that I have this super rough sketch, I'm going to open a new layer and put that under my first sketch layer. And in that layer, I'm going to hit this little N. This is like the layer settings. I really want to focus on the opacity for right now for this sketch, because I want to be able to see my sketch. And since I don't have a kneaded eraser, this is sort of like using a kneaded eraser if I was drawing with pencil. I'm going to lower the opacity so that I can still see the sketch, but just barely. And I'm gonna start picking my colors and just filling in those shapes. Now, like I said, this is a super rough drawing, but there will be a final sketch that will be a lot better than the super rough sketch that'll go on top of everything. And then I'm going to use those layer settings to make it look really cool. I'm just using this really rough sketch as just an idea of where I want everything to be. I'll really be staring at my little still life the most to actually see how everything looks. So I'm going to start with the first thing that I drew, which was the cake. So I'm going to pick a base color for that, which will be like that sponge cake color, which is almost very similar to the background, but just a little bit beige-er. So now I'm gonna do the frosting color, which is like a strawberry pink. And now I'm gonna do those middle frosting layers. It can be really messy because that's kind of what the clay looks like since I made it so long ago, so it's not that great. But also like a fun, like homemade cake. And now there's a like shadow of the frosting right here. And I'm gonna use a slightly darker color for that. Just gonna do a line for where that shadow is and see what that looks like without the sketch. And some like bits in the like frosting part. I'm gonna stay in the same layer because I think it's just more fun to stay in the same layer. I used to have like a million layers for each like little sketch that I would do, each brush stroke that I needed. And I really embraced just like drawing on top of the same layer pretty recently, and I think it can be a lot more fun. And you also don't get that message that like you can only have like a number of layers. Using that same technique that I just did before where I used a different color for the shadow, I'm gonna do that again for where there's some shadows in the strawberry. Because of the light coming in on this way, the shadows are back here. And then pick a green for those leaves. Now for the like strawberry seeds, I actually didn't do much detail in the clay sculpture of. It's just a bunch of like little indents. And I completely forgot to do anything for the cake. I'm gonna do a little bit of highlighting where some of the light is coming in. So I'm gonna be using a similar red for Miffy's little dress. And now the bunny part. And just like the cake, I repeated the same process where I used a slightly darker color for a lot of the shadows in each component of this drawing. And for this drawing, that's a little trinket or a little item. And I had to do some tweaking with some of the shapes, but turned out pretty much exactly how I wanted it. And then I drew the little markings on the face. Now I want to change the color of this square here for the frame, since it's not really the color that I want. Now there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You could do this clipping mask trick where you find the color that you want and cover the entire screen with that. Instead of doing that, I'm going to go over here into the adjustments section and I'm going to click on hue, saturation, and brightness. And here at the bottom we have a bunch of new sliders, very similar to the sliders in this color wheel here. So I want this to be a different color, a little bit warmer than the color that it is right now. So I'm going to bring up the saturation to a pretty high amount. And there's also the hues, which changes the hue of it. Now, I don't want to be messing with that, so I'm gonna leave it at 50, but what I really wanted was the saturation. Now that the color of the frame is fixed, I am just going to alter the shape of the inside of the frame a little bit and then get onto a lot of the details. I was working on most of the shadows behind the frame. There's like a little bit of wood behind the frame, so I did that. And the color I used ended up looking very green, but I didn't mind it since there's a lot of green and yellow in this drawing today. Once I was done with the actual frame, I can get onto the inside, which was just a piece of paper with some clovers on top of it. And I had a lot of fun drawing the clovers as usual because I really love clovers. So I tried to find a similar green that looked like the green that the clovers were, and then I drew what the shapes look like and then colored those in. I didn't do much detail in them, but I did use a different green color for like the inside of the clover, which is like that line in the middle of a lot of clovers. And I just had a great time just like chilling and drawing. And then finally, our last little green thing for this drawing today is this little trinket. It's called a Smisky blind box toy. There are these little glow-in-the-dark figurines, and this one is like looking back, so I had to draw their shape as best as I could, and then they have this like little dark green like frowny face that I had to draw as well. My favorite part is doing the details, and now I'm going to get into the actual like item shadows. I've been doing shadows on top of them where the light is, but I haven't done any shadows underneath each item that much. A trick, instead of using black to do shadows, I forgot where I seen this from, probably TikTok or something. People were using like a dark blue for the shadows and then lowering the opacity on them, and I've been really enjoying that shadow trick. So now these are all in weird places because there's so many items here, but basically I'm going to use this Gaussian blur here in the adjustments. Okay, now like I said, I'm going to change the opacity on all of these. Also want to change the color of this a little bit, but I think I actually just need to change the background. And there's also shadows behind all of these other objects as well. And there we go. Now this cake, the color is a little bit weird, so I'm also going to change the saturation of that. I actually don't like the background color anymore, so I'm going to change that again. Now, in the beginning I said I would do a cool thing for the sketch. So we have here super rough. I didn't even go in all of these spots where the sketch was. So I'm gonna do a layer in front of everything, find that dark red color that I like to sketch with, and I'm gonna go into the layer settings and go down to overlay. Now what this does is that I don't really know how to explain it, but it just creates this really cool, like super bright, saturated color depending on the color that your brush is using. So here, this is a different version of red. Here's a blue. So it all depends on what the color is. And since I like to use this dark red to sketch with, I think it also creates this fun overlay too. So I am going to literally do an outline using the overlay. So that's what the overlay looks like. You could also do all these other options. Ooh, there's a mistake there. Vivid light also kind of does a similar thing. Again, it depends on what color you have selected. Now I'm gonna do overlay again, and I'm gonna pick a fun color and do a bunch of stars. So we're on the last final steps of this drawing, and I wanted to add a little bit of texture, and when I ordered some new Procreate brushes, some of them came with actual like paper texture files, so I'm importing those and then just changing the opacity on that, so just to add a little bit of texture to the background so it kind of emulates like a painted wall. And then another cool trick that I learned from Paloma Peach is something called halftone. So I'm going to find like a nice warm color and just fill the entire layer with this color, and then we're gonna go to the adjustments page again, and towards the bottom there is a section called halftone.
There's full color, screen print, and newspaper. Newspaper is always in black and white, and I prefer full color. I haven't tried these other ones yet, and since newspaper's in black and white, I haven't really been using that. I lower the opacity on that, and it adds another great texture effect as well.
So here we have the still life drawing. I had a lot of fun just like playing with all of the fun tools that I like to use. So there's a bunch of like little tricks that I taught you guys on like some of the things that I do. Some things I've learned, the great Paloma Peach, who's an amazing artist, they taught me the halftone thing, and I stumbled upon overlay a while ago and I've just been obsessed with it. I hope you picked up on some new tricks and just like had fun drawing along with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you next time. Goodbye!